Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Happy Thursday, the second edition of the Degen Docs. What a better way to kick off your NFL Week 13 than listening to us idiots talk about some football. We are going to get you updated on the biggest, latest, and greatest fantasy football injury news. Who are we? The Degen Docs. We are just two medical professionals with a shared love of degeneracy. We are breaking down the biggest injuries. We are telling you what guys questionable, who to start, who to sit, telling you a little bit more information to help you ultimately win your leagues and potentially win some money. I am the OG SGPN football doc here, and I'm joined by my co-host, Mr. Professor Locks, finding all the value, Mr. Derek Bennett. How are we doing today, brother?
Hey, my guy. Doing well. How's the week going?
Hey, man, not too bad. I'm ready to watch these Cowgirls get taken down.
Hey, how about you hitting both of your underdog plays last week?
Hey, let's be honest. Yeah, I mean, hey, we went 3 for
You were
4 last
2-0,
week.
1-1.
Yeah,
I thought that was a pretty decent start.
I will take 3 and 4 to go ahead and start the kickoff, and I think we got one today that is going to go 4 for 4 and win some people
Got a
some
redemption
money.
play.
Stay tuned for that. But all right, we are going to get right to business here. Got a lot of injuries to talk about, so we're going to go ahead and kick it off. We're going to go ahead and pull up the NFL injury report, fantasy football injury report over on sportsgamingpodcast.com. And we're going to go through and walk through the biggest injuries, tell you what do you need to know, what the hell is they're talking about, and who to start, who to sit. So let's go ahead and see if we can get that pulled up here. All right, here we go. And looks like
truly.
Yes. Looks like we're first talking about Mr. Jonathan Taylor, Mr. Cover Photo there. So Taylor, well, the way this will work is I am going to lay the scene, and then I'm going to kick it over to my co-host, and he's going to give us the real deal knowledge there. So Jonathan Taylor dealing with a thumb injury, kind of a surprise, right? He had a nice 2-touchdown performance, almost 100 yards. He played the entire second half with the injury, so most would assume he was going to be able to play through it. Unfortunately, that was not the case. He actually had surgery this week. They're expecting him to be out at least 2 weeks. They're not considering him an IR candidate. You know, I know there's not a lot as far as they've given specifics, but what are you concerned about with the thumb injury, you know, getting this surgery? Do you expect him back more closer to 2 weeks, 4 weeks? What are we thinking there, Derek?
Yeah, I mean, ideally he'll be back after 2 weeks, but I would say that's unlikely at this point. I would say closer to probably the 3 to 4 week mark. But really the big thing, especially with any sort of finger thumb related injury, is especially with the running back is ball security, right? If he can't grip the ball, if he can't hold on to it very well, leaves it pretty vulnerable to fumbles, coming out of the backfield as a receiving threat may minimize that as well. So JT may be a little bit more limited coming back even the first week or two that he's back on the field. But with that being said, we're getting close to playoff time, right? And it would be pretty tough to not have JT in your fantasy football lineup come playoff time. So it's kind of a wait and see kind of thing with him. But obviously he'll be out at least probably the next 2 weeks, probably the next 3. But then you will kind of have to see how things go.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Now, one of these things where he's definitely going to be out at least 2 weeks, right? So the hope is that you went and picked up Zach Moss if he was available. So did the waiver wire targets, obviously had him on the article, do something on whether it's X or TikTok. We give out some waiver wire picks every week on Tuesday. So obviously, you know, maybe he probably wasn't available in most of your kind of deeper leagues, most of the leagues where, you know, people know a little bit of something. But obviously, Zach Moss, whether it's in the prop market or in the fantasy football market, if you have him, you definitely want to start Zach Moss. All right, moving on. We got next up, I believe it is Mr. Chris Olave for the New Orleans Saints. Young, talented Buckeyes wide receiver coming out. Unfortunately, he's had his issues with head injuries, concussions in the past. Looks like he picked up a concussion this week. He went up for a catch, went down really hard, and hit his head. Now, concussions have been something that's kind of been a changing landscape. It's already one of those things that's a bit of a mystery, but especially after in the beginning of this year, after the whole Tua effect, the NFL got real conservative with who they were letting play. Most guys were missing at least one game. However, in the past few weeks, you know, it started with Brock Purdy. They've kind of changed a little bit. Olave was able to practice this week on Wednesday and have a limited practice today. Are you expecting him out there? Should we be concerned? What are you thinking, Derek?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, it seems like they're becoming a little bit more lenient later part of the season here as far as concussions go, whether that's true or not. If he plays this week, I'm not so much worried about Chris Olave, but who's throwing him the ball? Is it Derek Carr? Is it Jameis Winston? Is either one a great option? I don't know, but I think at the end of the day, I see Chris Olave being probably a start as long as he's on the field, depending on who else you have rostered. But I don't necessarily think the concussion is too much to worry about. More so other factors.
Yeah, I would agree there. Yeah, so the nice thing about concussions is there is a little bit of an elevated re-injury risk when you do get back on the field. We will know probably by Friday or Saturday if he's going to release out of concussion protocol. He needs a full practice, so that's what you're hoping for if you have Olave on your team tomorrow. But with concussions, again, a little bit of elevated re-injury risk, but there's no real dip in performance. So like Derek said, if he's out there, you probably want to start him. Your bigger issue is if Derek Carr can get in the ball. It does look like Rashid Shaheed is going to be out for sure, not just this week, potentially more weeks. So, maybe that frees up some targets, or maybe it works the other way where he can be targeted on a little bit more. So definitely someone that you're probably going to have to start in fantasy and hope that Carr can get in the ball there. All right, moving on. We are going to go ahead and follow this up talking about quick one here. Just a quick update for obviously, comes out Thursday Night Football starts tonight, NFL Week 13. You got your Seattle Seahawks heading to Dallas to take on the Cowgirls. Yes, we are not Cowboys supporters here. So if you're coming here for some Cowboys love, you probably won't get it, but we won't be that mean. All right. But so Kenneth Walker is going to be out. He's inactive this week. He hasn't practiced yet is the bigger issue. I kind of expected him to be out early in the week with that oblique injury. But what is your concerns as far as Walker, him not practicing? Are you worried it's going to be more than just this week, Derek?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's with this being an earlier game, they may just be allowing him a couple extra days rest, with knowing that they have some extra time earlier in the next week, just to make sure things are completely healed up. With that being said, oblique strains, oblique related injuries are really hard to tell without knowing more information. Any abdominal correlated injury is very painful, and because your core and especially your obliques play a very crucial role with basically any kind of movement, this is a hard one to play through,
Yeah.
So
no, absolutely.
I think this is a to be monitored. We'll kind of see Monday, Tuesday, first part of next week.
Yeah, I think it all depends if you can get back to practice, right? You hit it the nail on the head, right? It's one of those things where every rotation, every laugh, things just hurt, right? It's very painful injury for those who have not had it. Oblique strains, it really connects from your ribs to your hips. And it's a situation where that is definitely painful. And if he hasn't practiced yet, I'm not too optimistic for next week, but Derek did bring up a good point. It's an early game, so maybe they're just giving him some rest there, playing it cautious. All right, moving forward to some guys that do have a shot to play this week. We're talking about Bengals wide receiver T. Higgins. He returned to practice today. He's been out the last 3 weeks when he injured his hamstring in practice a few weeks ago, and it's his first time returning to practice today. He did tell reporters that he does expect to play. So assuming he is able to play, Derek, are you trusting T. Higgins in this spot?
This is another one similar to our Olave guy. I mean, if Joe Cool was back there throwing the ball, I wouldn't mind putting him in the lineup. But with that being said, hamstring strains, as we've said numerous times, are extremely difficult to come back from because the hamstrings play a crucial role in any kind of sprinting, jumping kind of activities. So as a deep threat, it becomes a lot more limited. From a cutting standpoint, a lot more limited. Jump balls, again, more limited. And with that being said, with Browning as the new Bengals starting quarterback, you may try to find somebody on the waiver wire if possible to fill in yet again for T. Higgins.
Yeah. Love it. Love it. Yeah. So I agree there. T. Higgins, I think it's too risky of a play. High re-injury risk coming back from hamstring strains, especially that first game back. And like you had said, really, I mean, we're really going to trust Jake Browning to get on the ball. I think getting the ball to Jamar Chase is hard enough. Jags, although not the best.
Ball.
Yeah. Yeah. Jags not the best defense, but they are formidable, and I think it'll be a little bit tough. So, especially getting close to the playoffs, if you're in the playoffs this week, I don't think you can trust T. Higgins to go ahead and roll him out there as a starter. All right, moving on. We have next up, it looks like Mr. Dallas Goedert. So this is probably the game of the week. I know I'm excited for this game, partially as a Giants fan, to finally get someone to take down those damn Eagles. But we have Dallas Goedert, tight end for the Philadelphia Eagles, who, let's be honest, that team has looked different since he's been out. That offense has looked a little more stagnant. He is a good receiver over the middle. As much as I don't like to admit it, he is on one of my fantasy teams. So, he can be pretty productive. He's been out. It's going to be 4 weeks this week where he has a chance to play. He had a forearm fracture. So why don't you go ahead and tell the people about, what are we concerned about with the forearm fracture? He hasn't practiced yet this week. What are you thinking as far as his availability?
Yeah, really the big thing with any kind of bone-related injury, especially, fractures, breaks, whatever you want to call them, is the bone healed or not, right? And then the easiest way, the only true way that they're going to find that out is by continuous X-rays. I'm sure they'll probably re-X-ray his arm sometime later part of this week to make sure things are good and healed up. It's one of those things that you're not necessarily as concerned with re-injuries a lot of times, right? Mm-hmm. But with that being said, if you're rushing this back at 4 weeks rather than 5 to 6, potentially could have some weaker spots in that bone. From a playing standpoint, I don't necessarily think there's a ton to be truly concerned about, as long as that forearm's truly healed up.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, it's like you said.
I mean, maybe rusty, just being out the last few weeks, but other than that.
Yeah, I think it's a situation where if he's healthy enough to play, as in that bone is healed, I don't have a lot of concerns about him, being limited. It's like if the bone's healthy enough to play, he's going to play. If it's not healthy enough to play, he's not going to play. So it's really one of those things that where his practice status, it's just really the imaging, like, is the bone healed or not? So, even if he's someone who doesn't practice these first 2 weeks and then gets to practice in next week, or even if he doesn't practice and they say he's good to go for the game, I think, typically with most injuries, I'm a little concerned. But with something like a bone healing, as long as it's healed, like you said, maybe a little rust, but he's going to get out there and he's going to be their starting tight end if he's out there. So definitely one to monitor. We're not quite ready to say yes or no, because it really depends on that imaging. All right, next up, last injury we're talking about before we get into some actionable fun stuff to make you guys some money. We are talking about the big one, Mr. Aaron Rodgers. I know when I first wrote this piece up in week 1 after, looking like the true hero of a movie, Aaron Rodgers rode in bearing the American flag on 9/11 to that awesome scene there in MetLife, just to be knocked out 4 snaps later. I thought this was a foregone conclusion that he's done for the year. We'll see if he comes back next year and kind of wrap it up. We are not at that place. It seems like he is adamant at trying to play. What say you, Derek? Do you believe that Rodgers is going to play this season? Where are you leaning? Where's your head at with this?
Overwhelmed. So there's a lot of things that come to mind with this injury, with Aaron Rodgers as a whole. This dude loves the spotlight, for one. Yeah. So is this a spotlight play? Potentially. Is his recovery moving faster than I expected? It is. But with that being said, he also has so many other cautious things that he's taking, that are going on kind of behind the scenes, that a lot of people don't realize. He's running in an altered G, which is basically an anti-gravity treadmill. So at this given point, I think he said earlier in the week that he was at like 70 to 75% body weight. So for instance, if you're in a pool, you're probably closer to 60% body weight. Yeah. And we all know how it feels differently walking in a pool rather than walking on land. He's also wearing special kinds of shoes, and I pulled them up earlier. They're the Keen WK 400s, I think is what the exact shoe is. But with that shoe, it's basically like you're taking the calf's job, the Achilles job away from walking. So you basically have this curved sole that allows him just to roll onto his front foot rather than his Achilles to actually propel him onto his front foot. It also has a plate in it to basically give him this extra propulsion
Yeah,
forward.
it's pushing off for him. It's doing the calf muscle work for him, right? Like,
Exactly.
yeah.
So, with that being said, I think it's amazing that he's out there, 78 days, 79 days
79
after
days.
surgery.
Yeah,
That's
a good one.
incredible.
Yeah.
But this is his full-time job too. So for the average person to return after 2.5 months or whatever to taking 2-step drops and throwing the ball to somebody without shoulder pads on, pretty incredible. But for somebody that's doing this as a full-time job, he's done a ton of research, he's putting all of his time and effort back into getting on the field. I'll give him credit. He's looking really, really good for this point. But am I thinking that he's going to be back on the field at the end of the year? I don't know if I'd say that yet.
Yeah. No, I'm right there with you, right? So there's a lot to unpack here, and like we're going through it pretty quickly. But when this first kind of broke that he had this aspiration, this goal to return the season, I kind of saw it more of as a PR stunt, right? I still don't believe he's going to come back. Now, as clinicians, as both physical therapists, we've rehabbed people coming back from Achilles in full ruptures, surgeries. This is not a minor injury. This is a huge deal. You got to relearn how to walk. There's a lot to this. Now, as a clinician, it's always good for your patient to have goals. You always want to have goals, but part of your job is to make sure you're realistic in those goals. And I think realistically for him to kind of come back and actually play a game of football before 3.5 months out of his surgery is just wildly it's almost unethical. It's something that you should not really recommend. Now, he is his own individual. So maybe the doctors are saying, hey, we don't recommend this, but he's saying, you know what, I want to do this. That's another case, but I still don't think, and the biggest thing too is the Jets aren't going to be in playoff position. Like they're 4-7. And I think they're not going to be favored in any of their next 3 games. Like, I just think this is more, hey, let's, and all they did was say he's ready to start football activities. He's not fully practicing. They just showed videos. And if you notice in the videos, none of them show his feet. So that whole rocker bottom shoe that we were talking about, there's a reason that they didn't show his feet, because it's not cleats that he's throwing in, right? It's more than likely those shoes that help him to be able to do that. And his arm was never hurt. So him being able to throw a ball doesn't tell me anything. Again, cool story. Definitely he's definitely ahead of schedule, but for him to try to come back and play in less than 4 months is insane. I don't think it happens. And for his sake, I really hope it doesn't. But again, it's the National Football League. So let's see. It's Mr. Aaron Rodgers. Yeah, crazier things, right? So, all right, now we're going to get into our nice underdog fantasy parlays. We're going to win you some money. But before we do that, I want to tell you guys about of our sponsors here. So we have Hall of Fame Bets. We are brought to you by Hall of Fame Bets, sports betting research platform for parlays, prayer props, and game lines. We are about to give you a nice juicy 10-1 parlay, and we did it with the help of Hall of Fame Bets. Nice part about this is you can either download Hall of Fame Bets or visit hofbets.com and use our promo code SGPN for 50% off your first month. So let's say, hey, you're skeptical. You don't know if you really want to get into this. We will give you half off for the first month with that promo code SGPN. Then you can get an idea if you like it. You probably will. You'll probably fall in love with it and not mind paying full price there going forward. And our next sponsor, of course, is Underdog Fantasy. So we obviously have our parlay here from Underdog, but Underdog Fantasy, we're also giving you more free money. At SGPN, we love helping you guys out. We are Degens at heart ourselves, so we love to help our fellow Degens. We are giving you a free $100. Use promo code SGPN on your initial deposit, and you will get up to $100 on that first initial deposit. It's super easy. I've done this. My wife has done this. Derek's done this, right? All you got to do is sign up, use promo code SGPN, deposit $100, and boom, a free $100. And Derek and I are going to help you with trying to turn that $100 into 10X with our Degen Docs prescription play of the day. I'm going to kick it off here. I'm going to go with Denver Broncos running back Samaje Perine higher than 31.5 rush and receiving yards. Denver's at Houston this week, and all of a sudden, Denver's a team to look out for. They're making a playoff run, right? And one of the things that they've gone to is they've started to really rely on their running backs, whether it's pass catching or running the ball downhill. Obviously, Javonte Williams is that lead guy. Now, coming out of the bye, we kind of thought that the explosive rookie Jaleel McLaughlin was going to be the guy to kind of get that RB2 spot, and Samaje Perine was going to be left out. But based on splits and stats, that's not the case. P. Ryan has a clear role as a receiving back, and he also is starting to get some work as a hard downhill runner. He's a dog. He runs through arm tackles. That's who Sean Payton likes. He's hit this number in 4 out of his 5 last games. I think P. Ryan smashes this. I think he can get there on the ground or through the air alone. And if you give me both, I'm definitely going to take it. All right, Derek, what is your first play for the people?
I got the cheetah to score, rushing, receiving, either way. He'll be in the end zone at some point on Sunday. Going up against the Washington Commanders. They just fired Jack Del Rio. Ron Rivera's on the hot seat. That organization is all over the place right now. And Tyreek Hill, their offense basically runs through him. So I think Tyreek Hill for a touchdown is a lock.
I love that. Yeah, I like the Dolphins. I think the Dolphins could put up another 50 points or 70 points, this week against those Commandos there. All right, next up, we got Mr. Amari Cooper. Another guy who's on my injury report. We didn't get to talk about him, but really quickly, dealing with a rib injury, got knocked out of last game. He did have negative x-rays, but that does not mean there was no damage done. He's been limited in practice. He said he's going to play, but for anyone who's ever dealt with a rib injury, those are nothing to joke about. Anytime you twist, you turn, anytime you laugh, anytime you cough too hard, it's going to hurt. So, you're telling me that he tries to get a slant over the middle and from Mr. Joe Flacco, who's probably not going to throw an accurate ball, and he gets popped in the ribs and isn't going to play anymore. I love the under here. He's averaging 70 yards on the year, but he's played with all these different quarterbacks. And if we're really going to roll Mr. Joe Flacco out at quarterback, I love giving me an injured Amari Cooper to be just upset and probably wondering why he played once he realizes Joe Flacco Hail Marys him about 50 times. All right, go ahead and finish us off there, Derek. Who you got?
Muth. Pat Fryermuth for over 32.5 receiving yards. This guy was kind of the little engine that could last week for the Steelers. Had a big coming out game for this part of the season. First game over 100 yards last week with 120. He had 11 targets, 9 receptions. I have no idea why this number is so low. There's no way he does not go over 32
I agree.
yards.
That is a super, super low number. All right, quick recap. So we got Samaje P. Ryan higher than 31.5 rushing receiving yards. We got Mr. Tyreek Hill, anytime touchdown. Pat Fryermuth higher than 32.5 receiving yards, and finishing off with Mr. Amari Cooper lower than 48.5 receiving yards. Parlay them all together for a beautiful, juicy 10x 10-1 play. That's what we do here at the Degen Docs. We tell you what's up. We give you the lowdown on what are the injuries, and we try to make you some money, most importantly. All right, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, we hope you had fun talking ball with us. We will be back every week, so look out for us talking more biggest fantasy injury news and giving you opportunities to make some money. I am the OG SGPN football doc, and he is Mr. Professor Locks, and that is the Degen Docs. We are out. We hope that Cowgirls take the L, and we see you all back here next week. Let it ride.
Peace.